Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Gerard, and this is a follow-up to typical narcissist baby boomer parent, baby boomer response. I wasn't hard enough on you, and typical narcissistic baby boomer parents, and here's a story. Hi, Ollie. This is Gerard again. I'm so thankful for you and the Narcissistic Resistance. The community has been wonderful, and I can't believe all the feedback I'm getting from the 2 videos you made for me. As always, you've been incredibly insightful, and it's really helped me to start put together the pieces. Part of me feels bad for my parents as this all seems to be coming out of nowhere. Like one day we had a cordial relationship, and now all of a sudden I hate them with a passion. You didn't have a cordial relationship. You had a submissive relationship. It was only cordial because you were submissive to them and they were getting their way. That's not cordial. It's sort of true, though, that I used to think that they were quirky people with somewhat abrasive personalities instead of the trashy swamp monster narcs that they are. It's so easy to think you can do whatever you want to children until they get out into the world and realize how devastatingly fucked up their actions and behaviors are. I've heard that the human brain doesn't finish developing for men until we are 25. It seems like that is when we can investigate our past and put the pieces together. I really loved your "You Were the Pet That Ran Away" video with Megan. Her mom talks almost the same as my mom. Was the same age that I am now, and her story really touches me a lot. And my mom used to torture me with thank you cards as well. I hope Megan and her baby are doing well. I believe that was Megan was adopted. I do remember that faintly. When I graduated, my undergrad mom wanted me to write thank you notes to people who gave me presents. I wanted to write notes to the people who weren't present as I thanked everyone in person at the party. My mom and my narc aunt, a racist woman my mom worked with in Louisiana who is into New Age spirituality, both said I needed to write thank you notes to everyone that I didn't want and that I didn't want to because I was entitled and ungrateful. Oh, the thank you note thing is just it's such a waste of time. I mean, I understand the thought behind it, but if you're at the party and you thanked everybody and like now you got to sit there and you got to write out thank you notes. Oh, no, I don't agree. I don't agree. For a child, for what? What was this for? For graduation? Oh my, no, I don't. Just let him move on with his life. Christ. The irony speaks for itself. I'm sorry I forgot to mention my age before. I didn't realize how important that was until you pointed that out in your video. That's right, my parents were in their 40s and 50s throughout my childhood, which was what my point was. You know, they said I didn't remember. If you remember Gerard's story, his mom said, well, I didn't have a manual on how to raise you. The woman was in her 40s. His father was in his 50s. This was in the 90s and the 2000s. Okay? I mean, come on. I was told by a therapist that my dad acted the way he did because he's old. If he was abusing me when he was younger, it would have been blamed on the fact that he was young or stressed from work. These narcs must have a handbook. 50 isn't that old. It's not like he's 90. Like he's old. What kind of answer is that from a therapist? This is also why my mom wanted to talk about my job search. It was my first time trying to find a full-time job. My parents were both teachers and school administrators, which now seems like a huge red flag to me. Oh, yeah. That would make sense. Typical baby boomers. Typical baby boomer, academic, selfish, entitled, had a kid later in life because they were too busy being fucking academics. Plus, I'm sure they're overpaid, overprivileged, can't be fired, no concept. What would your mother know about finding a job as a public school teacher? Nothing. Nothing at this point. Nothing. Your mother, by the time you're finding a job, is well into her 50s or even 60s. What would she know after being a public school teacher for as long as about finding a job? As sad as a statement as that is, she should know, but she doesn't. I hate the public school system and believe it's systematic state-sponsored child abuse. This is, of course, what drew my parents into that field for their entire lives. Not to mention the fact that they would receive generous pensions, basically fleecing the property owners of Louisiana and Georgia, whom they treat with disgust and contempt. Look, the reason and the other reason it draws so many narcissists is because it's a job that you can show your virtue. Oh, look at how virtuous I am. I'm a public school teacher educating our youth, when it's really just an indoctrination center used where you're God of the classroom, you're controlling these minds. It's all a fucking power trip at state taxpayer expense. It also helps that they had ample opportunity to bitch about how they weren't being paid enough. Which, if that were true, why wouldn't they just find better paying jobs? Both of them have multiple degrees, including my dad, who has degrees in biology. Because in better paying jobs, you have to compete. You have to compete for your job. You can be fired from your job in the private sector. Okay? And your parents didn't want that. They wanted the state-funded pensions. They wanted they didn't want the competition, and they didn't want to have have the black cloud of being fired because their performance is shitty. You're basically being an academic. You're basically being paid to stay in school. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing, and it's not reality. And that's why when both parents are public school teachers, you have no basis in reality. None. Baby boomers, who, you got to remember, the baby boomers are the ones who gave themselves these exorbitant state-funded pensions. They gave this all to themselves. They're not based in reality, anything they've done. Anything they do. So your parents have zero basis in reality. They are basically been school children their entire lives, and now they're professional school children. He actually retired when I was fairly young. I don't remember a lot of the reasons why. Because he probably put in his 30 years and however many years and got to the point where he can retire on full salary or on whatever his max salary was going to be at that point. He basically became a house husband, but was really bad at it. He would hardly clean and would occasionally cook. He would pick me up from school and take me places, acting angry and resentful if I wasn't where I was supposed to be to pick me up. He was very angry because I didn't go directly to the parking lot after school the first day because I didn't know that he would be there at that time. I remember thinking he would come into my mom's classroom and ask me how my day went. I don't know why I thought that, but instead he yelled at me because he had a knock on the window to tell me to come into the parking lot. To be fair, the door to the school was locked, but Mom had a landline phone in her room, and I had a cell phone. And he's sitting there in his mother's classroom. The moment I think he broke me, or at least the one that sticks out most in my mind, was when he yelled at the top of his lungs at me when I didn't bring home a note from school. It was a note saying the school was going to be closed that Thursday for some reason. I remember this vividly, and it's a major memory that drives my anger towards him. I was in elementary school in 5th grade, I believe. We were supposed to bring home a note saying that the school would be closed. I forgot, and when I got home, Dad asked me if they sent a note. I told him that I forgot it and told him it said the school was closed on Thursday. He never asked me to bring the note. The next day, I didn't bring the note home, thinking that everyone could figure out the essence of the note. He asked if I brought it home. I said I did not, because it simply said school would be closed and nothing else. Dad then said, we got you a computer, a game system, because God forbid he figure out what it's called, and a cell phone, and all we ask is for one thing, which he screamed the last part at me at the top of his lungs. He then proceeded to huff out of the room and closed the door. Look, he's using whatever opportunity he can use to fucking berate you. I mean, this is a tactic my father used on me as well. My father did the same, something very similar to me, where I had this teacher, this languages teacher, Miss Washburn, who was just a lazy sack of shit. She didn't teach anybody. She didn't do anything. The grades were all bullshit. They were all based on whether she liked you or not. They were based on nothing. Nothing. And she would decide, she would try to figure out whose parents were the weakest, who she could get away with trying, because she would try to curve it so, you had a certain amount of A's, B's, C's, D's, and failures each semester. And when she pulled, and everybody knew about her game, everybody knew her typical bullshit, and all the parents had to do was stand up to her, and it went away. And she fucking moved on. Not my parents. They took her as every fucking word she said was fucking, was gospel. And I told her, call anybody, any fucking parent you want about this woman, and find out what's going on. And they refused. And they refused. And she tried to send this letter home that I was failing. Okay? And I'm not bringing this home. Fuck you. I'm not failing. And it was like, I was 13 and a half, 14 at the time. And she, she does what she does. She calls home, and instead of my parents standing up to her, telling her to go fuck herself, they take her as every fucking word that she said is fucking gospel. And they jump on me, they hold me down. My father's just fucking pummeling me as my mother's holding me down. The next day, I come home, and my father looks at me. He's like, so did you bring that note home? I'm like, no. Why would I bring the note? She called you and told you what it fucking said. What do you need the note for? Same thing. Both of them. With Precious laughing. Thinking it's funny. This moment is stuck out in my head, and I think it's just exemplary of the kind of person he is. If he wanted the damn note so badly, he could have asked kindly and sent a reminder if he meant so much to him. Either way, it didn't make much sense. Like I was supposed to bring a note home he never told me to bring home because he bought me electronics. That's the one thing he wanted, a note? No, they just wanted the excuse to abuse you. And my father didn't want the note either. He didn't ask for the note. He didn't want the note. He just liked that they figured out that him and my mother could team up. Now I remember. I remember now. The second time they came at me, and my mother got behind me, because I was already taking Taekwondo and karate at that point. They came and I was able to flip my mother off of me, and then my father tried to hit me and I blocked it without even, I caught it. And I figured out, we all figured out at that point, the two of you have to team up to do anything to me. And I knew it and they knew it. That's what Tribal Council was about. It was about the two of them in my face after that point. Pieces of shit. Couple of fucking cowards. But to answer your question, no. No, it wasn't about the note. It was about the excuse to abuse you. It's not about the note. Note didn't matter. Either way, it's not an excuse for a grown-ass man to yell at a 9-year-old child at the top of his lungs, what an asshole. Things like this happened often while I was younger. I was a Boy Scout and earned the Eagle rank. I recently looked this up, and this is something that only about 4% of all Boy Scouts do. The day I finished the project, my dad was mad at me because I didn't thank the people who helped enough. He gave me this long berating lecture, and what this is about, again, you didn't do this on your own. Don't feel good about it. You can't do anything without these other people, and you're going to acknowledge, just so I can make sure I further damage and further destroy your accomplishment in your own mind. I'm going to make you give credit to people who don't fucking deserve it. Fuck, I had my father telling me in a letter to my goddamn therapist, talking about teaching me how to pitch at 10 years old, taking credit for a fucking Little League championship. I was 30 when that happened. When he took credit for it. Oh, fucking dick. He gave me this long berating lecture about how I didn't respect enough or show enough gratitude. This was really rich due to the fact he was always criticizing me and acting like he had deep resentment towards me all the time, looking for things to get mad at me about. I guess saying projection would be too obvious here, especially since his attempts to try and reconnect to me since I was 20 have been pitiful. I'm not sure why I was being coy about what I found on my dad's electronics. This part gets kind of gross, so just a warning that if it'll bother anyone. On his laptop, he had the most visited site called Bestiality Lit Erotica. Can't figure why 1 in 3 of them have Hep C though. Can't figure out why 1 in 3 baby boomers have Hep C. Can you? Bestiality lit erotica, which had a picture of a naked woman's breast on the front. His YouTube continue watching list had videos of animals and tribal humans having sex. The Netflix continue watching would have those one-star porno shows that used to be on Netflix, like Nymphomania and the Nuns of Wherever shows. I caught him masturbating in out family kitchen when I was 8 years old going to the bathroom. I asked him what he was doing, and he told me matter-of-factly, I'm playing with my pee-pee. Fuck him, I'm exposing this. Mom was a piece of work in her own right. I think all of you were extremely insightful in that she wanted me to be a Chad son husband. When we would sunbathe, she would often tell me to take my shirt off. At the beach, if I didn't bring my swim trunk, she would call me fat and say that I was stupid, that I wanted to be a singer. Another time when I was 17, one more trigger warning just in case, I found a lump in my testicle. We went to the doctor and had it examined. It was benign and normal. When we got the results back, my mom asked if she could see it. I said, what, the picture? She said, no, drop your pants and let me see it. Oh, God. It would be my mother, though. She'd want to see it. Just like she was showing my brother's when she was showing my brother's dick when he had to get recircumcised at 8 years old. I was totally freaked out. I know a lot of people talk about being molested and sexually abused. I always thought I was so lucky because that never happened to me. Guess I was wrong, and this is really freaky shit. These people act like upstanding moral citizens. Dad bought a house and land and to start growing plants. You know, because he didn't feel like taking care of the house we lived in. He wanted to paint the house blue, and for some reason my mom thought this was the worst idea ever. According to her, you can't paint a house blue because no one has painted a house blue since the 80s. And I thought, so what? It's a house, and you can't paint the house blue because of that reason? A bit of a backstory. My mom was a special ed teacher. She was really big on people not using the word retarded and getting into the whole R word thing. I would get in trouble a lot because people would call me retarded, and I started to call myself retarded. She told me once that she dressed down a student so much that he started to cry after he called one of her students retarded. I bet you could see where this is going. Dad painted the house blue, and Mom was so mad that she called him retarded while driving me home from school one day. When I brought it up a few years later, she said, "Did I say that?" And I said, "Yes." She then got really quiet, and in the voice she used when talking about how I shouldn't yell at my parents the way my dad did, she said, "Well, I must have been very angry." It's like, holy shit. She can call people retards, but when it comes to other people, they are being horrible if they do it. Right, the rules don't apply to them. They get their own rules. You don't. My parents have a strange role reversal. My mom has 3 jobs that she works on all the time. She makes enough money and keeps buying cars and other high-ticket items, so it's not like she's hurting for money. She's doing the classic thing that men do when they put themselves into so much work that they can excuse themselves from things they don't want to do. Dad just retreats into the house. He doesn't take care of the house, I'm guessing because Mom would bully and criticize what he did. I think a reason he's trying to reach out to me is that Mom is ramping up her bullying. Recently, we were at an event where he spilled something on his pants, and Mom would go around assuring people that he wasn't innocent and that he wasn't incontinent. He wasn't incontinent. He just spilled something. While I have issues with my dad, he did have prostate cancer, and operations recently. So that really was an issue he was facing. The fact that she would make jokes like that and still claim there are 10 million things I love about your dad seemed like a sick joke to me. It's been hard to think of my parents as narcissists because they never beat me, didn't steal money from me, and seemed to try to provide me with material possessions and paid for my college. At this point, I kind of wish they were doing something like this so that I would have a clear sign of their dysfunction. One question that I have is, how do narc family dynamics work with single children? I feel like if I had a sibling, just to note, I do have a brother and sister. They are my father's children, and they were 18 when I was born, and apparently hated me until recently. But a sibling I grew up with was one of us would have been a scapegoat and the other a golden child. I guess my friends were the surrogate golden children and I was the scapegoat. See, I didn't know your father had another family. So then your father really knew better if he already had kids. And your mother had you in her late 30s, early 40s. The reason why she keeps telling you there's a 10 million things she loves about your dad is because there's nothing she loves about your dad. Like I told you, she married him to have a baby. You, so you could be Chad. So you could be her Chad son husband. She's an academic. She put her life into her career, okay? But she couldn't fight biology. Your mother still can't fight biology. Women still want to have babies. It's biology, no matter what you do or say about it. Okay, that biological clock is a real thing. And it makes women, I don't care who we are, want to have a baby. That's what happened. The reason your mother has to keep telling yourself that is because she married your father because he was another academic. This was the best she was going to do. Narcissists, listen, baby boomers didn't marry for love. They married for best available. And you're a victim of that because you're the offspring of a woman who's just fighting against her biological clock, an older guy who probably wanted a younger wife. Academics, man. Mom told me how when she was young, she would go around in her car and meet people. She also mentioned that she was a cheerleading coach before when she needed money during the summer breaks, long before I was born. She was overweight when I was born and still to this day. The Chad son husband thing must have caused a great deal of resentment as I was overweight and socially awkward for most of my life. I still have problems where I believe that people won't like me or think I'm ugly due to my weight. Then I'm going to have to ask you, why are you overeating? The reason you're probably because you were overweight as a child, because you were an only child, and your mother was trying to incapacitate you with your weight. When you're an only child like that, okay, in your situation, it only makes sense that you would have problems with obesity and with your weight. Even though your mother wanted you to be a Chad, she couldn't risk you being a Chad and having you run off and find some woman. As fucked up as it is. That's her own internal conflict. I feel like I was a mix of both golden child and scapegoat. Mom would give these long speeches of how much she loves me and that I'm her world and that she's proud of me, etc., etc. This, of course, didn't stop her from calling me lazy, fat, and inconsiderate. Part of the reason I was overweight and socially awkward was how they raised me and treated me, right? Because it's like a girlfriend. I hate you, why don't you pay attention to me? I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. Go away, why did you leave me? That's your mother. That's your mother. Because she raised you as an only child son husband. You're an only child son husband of the narcissistic baby boomer. You got to understand your mother. See, to understand yourself, you have to understand your mother's mentality of how she ended up with your father, why she had you, what she did, who she is, what she's doing. On one end, she wants you to be a Chad so she can steal you from other. See, if you were able to give her like this undeniable love and affection, oh, mommy this, mommy that, and still be like this muscled up Chad, she'd love that and have no need for other women. She'd love that. But even she knows that's not realistic because she knows the nature of other women. She knows other women are going to come calling if you look like that. This is your mother's internal conflict that's causing all of this. You seem to say that they know they did this, but I would push back against that. I feel like they were very emotionally and socially stupid who were constantly frustrated at how their efforts weren't creating whatever the hell I was supposed to be. After all, they were wonderful, so how could they have such a weird, lazy, incompetent son? I guess I was more of a scapegoat than I realized. One of my cousins OD'd on Oxycontin when I was 17. Everyone was so sad about this. Another one of my cousins is disabled due to his own oxy addiction and the fact that he was morbidly obese. It's like the fact that I was in college and somewhat functional was a sign that I was doing much better than my cousins. I'm not trying to say that somehow I'm a better person, but I was treated like a crazy person while this was going on all around us. My dad's brothers were being fleeced by their meth head stepchildren for rehab, yet this screaming self-righteous anger was reserved for me due to the notes from my school and not being enthusiastic enough when I completed Eagle projects. Ollie, I can't believe how horrible these people are and the lack of awareness they have to any of these things. It feels good to write it out. No one knows my parents better than I do, so they're gaslighting in that I'm somehow misinterpreting events is just nonsense. I will send my contribution after writing this, Ollie. It feels so wonderful getting this off my chest. I have loved the community involvement, so I'm also looking forward to the comments and interacting with the rest of the community. Thanks so much for offering insight and hope this letter can help some people. I might talk about my extended family later since they are a piece of work and finding out about them has felt like another detective story. Again, thank you so much for reading my letter and I'm glad to contribute. Best, Gerard. Well, Gerard, every time you write in, I find out like another pretty big piece that falls into place. The fact that both your parents were lifelong public school academics just makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because they never lived in reality. They don't do it. Okay? And your mother, I'm telling you, was in her 30s and her biological clock was ticking and she wanted to have a baby and she was lucky enough to have a son. And on one end, she wants you to be a Chad and she wants you to do these things. And on the other end, she wants to sabotage you and doesn't want you to go anywhere. Why? Because both your parents know they're frauds. They both know they're frauds. They're both winging it and hope nobody ever figures it out. So, I hope that helps. Thank you for another contribution and story, Gerard. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance.